Julio, it's Sirius Talisman. This is Mercury, our soul day. And Mercury is in Libra, 16 degrees. Moon is 16 degrees Sagittarius sextile in Mercury. Venus, 10 degrees Virgo. And with Venus Ketu, there are a lot of historical wisdoms around women and relationships and even value and currency because Mercury is trade and Venus is value. For example, Sun is in Libra, and I recently learned that Spain had had a lot of silver, and its currency was based on that. And the more silver they had, the lower the value of the currency, and then there was actually inflation. But the duchies were stealing silver from Spain, and they made money differently. So that is interesting. And I think about Deneb Al-Gadi and about stealing in a way, like if somebody has to steal in a way that actually balances the economy and create a positive equilibrium, that is so compatible with Deneb Al-Gadi. Um, so, yes, Deneb Al-Gadi is considered the Robin Hood of stealing from the rich to give to the poor, but it's also in a sign of science and equilibrium and balancing a chaotic system. So you think about the fact that stealing silver, you think about the fact that minerals are better put in the hands of the people more so than in the hands of the banks if we want the food prices to be okay. Um, and that is one wisdom that I had. Another thing has to do with the relational dance, and I feel like this is an energy reading that's going to be useful for a lot of you. And this is something that I myself did not understand. And then, yeah, I did not understand so much. And then at the same time, I did understand. Um, when it comes to the relational dance, a lot of people interpret that as, how should I say that? Don't be too, don't be too easy to get. Don't be too stifling. Don't be that. No, it's not wrong. But the issue is that love is about being, whether it's having our space when we need it or connection. Um, and when it comes to that relational dance, it's not about playing a game, but about allowing the space for another person to be next to us. And when people, let's say, pull back a little bit because they give the space, the mindset and intention has to be there. Because if they believe that they're just playing a game to capture, it is clinching. It's think about the clenched fist versus the open hand. They have the clenched fist where they're trying to hold on to someone by letting go, basically. But that creates an energetic vibe that actually pushes people away. Because and here's the thing: if somebody is pulling back and the other person is arriving because they have a space to be, they might feel like they have to play the game so that somebody will be next to them. That's not a love frequency. Um, However, if somebody's pulling back a little bit because they see that they've been too stifling, then and somebody is kind of like positively responding to that, that balances the system because the person that pulled back, and first of all, for the person that pulls back, it means um, being receptive, like really working with the frequency of roses, smelling roses, being receptive to the scent of roses. Um, that can be very good for night charts, day charts. I don't know, like you have to see the equivalent. Um, but this is something that allows the person to receive love, and they can pull back, and then they can have love next to them. And this is the frequency. It's not a game playing frequency. At the same time, it can be that the other person is still, in their own thing, needing to curate their own stuff. and them needing to be able to receive love. And so the pulling back can be effective when it doesn't play on abandonment fears. It has to be done with frequency of love. And that's it really correlates with the previous channeling that I had about a relation being not about transaction energy deal. Okay, kind of like, hey, I take some energy from you. You will not grow as much, and I will protect you, or something like that. That's not sustainable because it basically drains the system. Whereas providing without taking, how should I say that? Being able, checking with oneself if one can be a provider without having to take from the other. And I was thinking about even, let's say, a cat. We have a cat. It's not like when you have a dog. They don't respond on commands. They love you on their own terms, and they're very affectionate. Um, people are like that in essence. And when it comes to energy, it's about both having the access to have their survival needs met, the relational needs met, and so on and so on. Because those attempts, and a lot of rituals work on that. In fact, during the Second World War, there was Nazi occultism that was inspired by Aleister Crowley, and it was draining on the sexual energy of basically feminist suffragists that became feminist suffragists because to begin with they were abused, and and it was draining on that energy to basically have a bigger Germany and so on. What it created was that suffragists were put in the concentration camps, but eventually after the Second World War, women, the men that thought that the woman needs to be in the kitchen died. The women that thought that the woman needs to be in the kitchen also died. Alternatively, they had to sustain without the man and growing a child alone and work, and he couldn't even do sex work because there weren't enough men. Okay, they're like, that would not be a sustainable business. There wouldn't be clients that died. Okay, so now they learned of what that the woman needs to have to be represented, um, and that it actually matters for a woman to be represented, because it mattered to their business if there were laws against businesses, or the bureaucracy against businesses was too hard. This is why I told, when I did my video about Oregon, I told landowners to try and have a small portion of the land registered on somebody. They can be a family member, they can be a homeless person, to see what's the bureaucracy when they want to cash in on the land, and when they want to have a change on the land. A lot of people are thinking, okay, my children, worst case scenario, my children will have this land, or I can have another family member living with me. And this is important also for the well transition. We have a well transition like the boomers had, because a lot of people, elderly people, don't have family, and they need somebody to inherit the land and so on. That's fantastic. For the younger generation, we need to tackle protecting the airspace, because the most we had in farms protecting the airspace was like those scarecrows. It's like, because our fear was birds, but now there's another consideration about the airspace, and also the airspace from those weird sprays that are coming. And while they can set the rain, but they also harm the tomatoes, which is one of the most sustainable growth that there is, basically. And I remember when they ripped the rosemary bush that I grew on the land, and that was, my entire psyche went Like this was such a, you know, powerful move of destruction, and it was not even a property that I owned. Not in, you know, so that's something. Yeah, that's just something that's very powerful. Um, and also, when we talk about the Bolshevik War, so I don't know too much about Bolshevism, but I can tell you what I noticed in my country that's having Uranus and Gemini. So we're gonna have probably something like a civil war, and in Gemini, it's always about slavery or modern slavery, and literally seeing omens of cotton when I was broadcasting about that. I was actually having a coffee, enjoying last moments of consumerism. Um, but this is another interesting thing because a lot of people before the Gen Zers, they were the people that had Uranus and Sag, and I was one of them. And I have Uranus in Sag in the 10th house. So I was with the people that were going to do revolutions in their workplaces by just being. We notice what doesn't work and what needs to change for people to be able to have a work that is actually working, whether it's by income or whether it's by not being corrupt in the workplace, um, and all these things. And so, well, that annoys people, but this is exactly the thing that a lot of us got disability, mental and physical. And I think about it. Let's say you work at a cafe. Why would a barista not have a chair and the ability to walk around? I mean, that's the person that makes our coffee. Now, speaking as an avid lover of coffee, um, and so we talk about the fair trade of the coffee grains, which is very important. Um, but also, there are those things that people wouldn't adjust for the people that had disability that just would say, hey, look for another job. Um, then I find another job in a credit card company, and we're being told, I'm setting your monthly return to 400 shekels when your expenses are 500 or 5,000, and you're gonna and what I'm and we're expected to just leave it at that. After at the end of the conversation, where the client has already been sure that they've been told everything. And by the way, that would qualify for litigation, okay, for a class lawsuit. It is credit fraud. And the person doesn't pay attention, but the interest is something like, together with the prime, around between 15 to 20%. And so, yes, that was 2 years prior to the subprime crisis. And basically, of course, I do not agree to do that, which eventually resulted in me resigning. That's after finding an opportunity um, that of previous client sector, and wait, and previous client sector coming up with a screenplay, because for sales we always have a screenplay, and we would think what would the person say, what would be their resistance, what would be their interests, and so on. And I had the ability to make that a service call, which basically allowed the entire multi-card department not only not to close but to hire um, two groups of new people, and to put that screenplay in the entire service department. Now, I got none of the dividends other than the raised benefits that we all got. So I knew about finding opportunity, and I knew about what the limit of the opportunity is. Then they tried to do the JP Morgan toothpaste on us. And I said no. That's why I didn't go with JP Morgan when we had the Young Entrepreneurs course in the IBM, because that was JP Morgan Chase. I could have, if I would have done that dumb fuckery, I would have done JP Morgan Chase at 20. And I said no. And I said no for a very simple reason. I did not go to do entrepreneurship, so not to live an uninteresting, boring life that deteriorate my bone marrow. Providing value, yeah, it's a challenging thing, but this is why capitalism always has to work with a sense of community. Now, for the people that didn't do all these revolutions, particularly around sexual sovereignty, in spirit and in matter for women, and the people that didn't do that, what happened eventually is that now there's going to be some sort of a Bolshevik revolution or something, and they are considered basically the class of the people that have money. That class was not redefined in the Bolshevik Revolution. They're not the working class anymore. And these people thought that the people that had a disability, because basically they were so that the slavery conditions at the workplaces created physical and mental disability. So they thought that these people are living on the account of the supposedly working people. But those working people were not working. They were doing witchcraft to drain the energy of the people that didn't want corruption. And that's how they got their money. That's how they got the salaries, and while doing a JP Morgan toothpaste scam. And you see, the owner of an idea will identify the idea. It's like a mother that identifies her child. Okay? And I've seen that because that dumb fuckery was done to me. Then I see the product and I'm like, I'm proud of you. And I remember, wait, I said that when, okay, there was that ritual, but then they were doing rape. It's like, why was that even necessary? It's not necessary. Like, why not, if you're inspired by somebody's ideas, why not implement them and share the dividends? They would have to share the dividends, but with a mother that got divorced, and there are 14 of them, and then the Mormons were exposed, and the Opus Dei were exposed, all for human trafficking, all the way to the Vatican. A mama recognized her baby. Okay. And that is, but that's true. That's what happened with those energies. So those are the little eurekas that I received, I guess, still in the aftermath of this eclipse. That Libra placement, Mercury going from Zendaya to Vendiametrix to the middle decan of Libra is the balancing decan, and what's not being balanced now will be balancing the extreme action of Libra, still juristic, still conversational, then it gets scorpionic. Okay? When Mars got scorpionic, the people that did a voodoo on people, those people learned that trick and they said, okay, the return to sender is going to be return to sender. Nobody's going to do that dumb fuckery. Okay? Now, Mercury is active speech. People that were, I don't know, that because of their acts of speech were, I don't, were their life were at risk or something like that, then basically that's not a good idea. Okay? That's, that's, that's what I'm saying. But here's another thing, and that's probably Mars activating my 9. I have a Mars 22 in Scorpio in the 9, pulling over Saturn and Pluto, all of them retrograde. I was just thinking about the many times that my 9th house was active, whether it was studies or traveling. There was always a war around. And this is true. What can I say? I was born in '84, so I don't know. And it was before, a couple of years before that would be the Soviet Union fall. A couple of years after that would be the Soviet Union fall, uh, which happened when I was 6. Actually, when I think about it, and then we had the Gulf War. So that is, yeah, basically, this will probably be the set of eclipses on the Scorpio Taurus when I think about that. So this is a little bit strange, um, but that's just something I woke up with.